love makes you crazy, therefore you can't call her crazy. 'Cause when you call her crazy, you're just calling her in love.
Blam!
Hey guys, it's coming over the first half of the season of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. This, of course, is Season 2. Now, I meant to review this season on Friday, but I just didn't get the chance to. I was really tired that day. And I definitely am very happy to finally review this season because you guys know Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is one of my biggest surprises of last year's fall season as well as the TV season in general. I found the show to be highly entertaining, but also very effective and telling some really great stories, and I was really looking forward to seeing what this season was going to be. But I was also a little bit worried because of how great the first season was. I was worried this was going to be one of those sophomore slumps, and I'm happy to say that that's not the case at all. In fact, it's the complete opposite. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend Season 2 is not only better than Season 1, but it takes all the best elements of Season 1 and kind of retcons them and makes it into a completely different show that actually works really, really well and really does show where the true relationships really, what they're really all about. And that's something I really did love about this first half of the season. But let's just get into this season because there is so much to talk about. I mean, there is so much that happens in these first 7 episodes. And it's pretty crazy to believe this is only the first half of the season because it seems like so much has already happened. But let's just get right into it, starting off with Rebecca's plot. So, as we know, last year, we ended on a huge cliffhanger at the end of Season 1 with Rebecca essentially telling Josh everything, that she moved to, West Covina for him, and that it's always been him, and that she's always wanted to be with him. And my prediction is that he was going to run away. That's what I thought was going to happen. I thought that she would have destroyed the entire relationship. But that's actually not what happens. They end up talking it over, and Josh at first is obviously a little bit creeped out, but he kind of understands her, and he understands where she's coming from, and he actually agrees to kind of start trying a relationship with her. So Rebecca kind of gets what she wants in the first half of the season, and they make you think that this is going to be what the season's about. Just from that intro, they make you think that this is going to be the season where Rebecca and Josh are together, and for the first 3 episodes, that's exactly what it is. We see Rebecca and Josh, and things are not great between them. We see Josh is kind of having a hard time moving on, from Valencia, because obviously he thought Valencia got kind of crazy, but he's having a hard time doing that, as well as trying to adjust to Rebecca's needs, because catering to Rebecca's needs is not the easiest thing to do, as we know. She has pretty high standards when it comes to relationships, and she wants him to move into her apartment, and she starts to bring all his stuff there. She tries to adhere to what he's doing, and at first it's really not working. She doesn't really know if this is really going to work out between them, and Paula's trying to tell her that, you should probably try to step back from Josh a little bit. That's not the best thing to do. But she decides to continue, bonding with Josh and everything, even though she knows that's probably not the right thing to do. She still continues to bond with him. You can tell that he's a bit creeped out, but I did like that by the end of this episode, they do agree to kind of stay together. I like the way that was done overall, and I definitely really did like that. But also in this episode, we finally answer the question of where Greg has been, because we really didn't know where Greg was going to end up at the end of last season, and Rebecca, is trying to figure out what's happened to him and where he's gone, and we end up basically seeing Greg. They go to this support group, and Greg is now in Alcoholics Anonymous, which I'm not surprised by at all. Greg, was heavily drinking last season. You could tell he was doing it to cope with, where his life has taken him, and Greg is now an alcoholic, which, again, this isn't a very surprising direction, but I think it probably is the right direction for his character, and again, this is something where, really, like I said, this is really the aftermath of what Rebecca has done. All of the craziness that Rebecca did to him, her leaving him, this is all from that, and obviously this has really gotten to Greg, and you definitely do see that here, so that was definitely sad to see, but I thought overall this was a really good start to the season. I definitely really did enjoy this first episode overall, and I'm happy to say that after this first episode, every episode kind of gets better after this one. Because episode 2 really, I think, is when the season really starts to kick off. Even though we had some great stuff in episode 1, episode 2 is where we really start to kick things off. First of all, in episode 1, Rebecca and Paula are very much separated this season, and that's something I really did love with the season, that this season really does become kind of an ensemble show. Now, Paula has her own thing going on, which I'll get into in episode 2, but a lot of episode 2, Rebecca is kind of to the side, but it focuses very much on her wanting to basically try to get into the same things that Josh is getting into, which she really doesn't know a lot about, but she decides to try ping pong because he's very much into it, and she doesn't know what the hell she's doing, but she decides to start playing ping pong anyway. He can tell that she really has no idea what she's talking about, but nevertheless, she continues to try to play ping pong and do well and everything, so you can tell that it's really not working out for her in the best way that, he wants it to. I did like the way that he told her to just be her, because you can tell that he likes her because of who she is, and that's something I definitely... I definitely really did like the way that turned out with her, playing ping pong and him not really as into it. I like the way that went overall, and I like the way they did bond over that. That was definitely very interesting to see. And the way that, again, she's trying to cater to his needs is, again, you can tell how overbearing things really are. But it really is episode 3 when things start to go really, really wrong, because Rebecca has so many things going on in episode 3. I mean, between this love triangle she now has with Greg, because Greg does find out, in episode 2, he's trying to go over being an alcoholic, but he does find out in episode 2, and I like that Josh told him that him and Rebecca are now together, and I like that he told Greg that was going on. Now, Greg is obviously upset about this, but he's not really mad at Josh. He's more disappointed in what's going on. I did like his reprise of I Could If I Wanted To, because, in reality, he wants to punch Josh in the face. In reality, he wants to say all these things to Josh, but he's not going to because he wants to be a good friend, and I did like the way that scene was done. You can tell this really does hurt Greg, because he really did care about Rebecca. I think that he definitely did kind of want to be with her, and he still does like her. You definitely can tell. And episode 3, this is when things really go wrong. But even though episode 3 things go wrong, it might possibly be the best episode of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend we've ever had. Everything about episode 3 I think is incredible. I think episode 3 is a perfect staple of everything we've been leading up to, and really is the game-changing episode for this season. And it's crazy it's episode 3, but it is in fact episode 3 that is the game-changing season. And let's just get right into it, because I thought this was very interesting, the way this was done. But basically, we see Rebecca, and she at this point, is being very overbearing towards Josh. She's having all of these sort of, she has this love triangle going on with Greg, so she really doesn't know what to do about that. And at the same time, she's trying to keep Josh to herself, and she starts to get the fear that she's pregnant, because her period hasn't come yet, so she starts to think that she's pregnant, and she goes to Josh, tells him that they're gonna have a baby and everything, and that she's pregnant, and she has this whole thing where she says, they're gonna have a baby, but then, literally 5 seconds later, she realizes that she's not pregnant, that her period actually has come. She does this whole song about period sex, and it obviously freaks him out. I mean, think about it, she first said she was pregnant, then she said she was not. This obviously is way too much for Josh to handle, and he just can't take it anymore. So after this, he actually does, surprisingly, end up breaking things off with Rebecca. And I was shocked that this happened in episode 3, but yeah, he tells her that I'm going to walk out, and he lets her know that this is not a temporary thing. This is not a fight. This is a goodbye. This is not something where, they're going to fight and they're going to make up. That's not what this is. This is more that he just can't be with her anymore. He can't deal with it, and he walks out of her life, which is very sad to see, but it kind of makes sense. After a while, Rebecca he can only take this crazy stuff for so much longer, so it makes sense why he had to eventually walk out of her life. It was definitely very sad to see everything that Rebecca's done, she's tried to do for Josh, and now this kind of leaves her kind of lost, because like I said, everything she's done, she's trying to do for Josh, but now she really doesn't know what to do, and that really takes us into a very interesting direction in the second half of the season. So, the picture, Rebecca now starts to think that Greg should be the one that she should be with, that maybe it was her and Greg all along. She starts to have fantasies of her and Greg being together. Paula even tells her that maybe Greg should be the one that she should be with, and that she always told her that it should be Greg. So she decides to go to Greg, and they do such a good job with this scene. You see Greg approaches Rebecca, and there's a warning, there's like a danger sign right there that's saying, no, this is not a good idea, don't do this. And I knew that definitely something was going to happen here, because he goes up to her, and it seems like these two are going to get back together. They talk about how much they love each other and how much they want to be together and how they kind of want to run away together. So it seems like Greg and Rebecca is in fact back on. It seems like these two are going to get back together. But in this episode, we see Greg going to his father, who, as we know, he doesn't really despise, but his father has held him back from what he wants to do. Greg is someone who has always cared so much about his family that it stopped him from doing doing what he really wants to do. And by having this conversation with his father, he starts to realize that the way by turning his life around is not by doing what he's doing. He needs to make a change. He wants to turn his life around. The way you do that is to get out of Rebecca's life. And it's very sad to see what he ends up doing, but we go in this very inevitable direction where he ends up going on a plane. And Rebecca thinks that, he's going to go with her, and that they're going to leave together, and that they're just going to get out of West Covina. But that's not at all what he plans on doing. Instead, he's actually going to leave West Covina to go to Emory University. And I like the way that he tells her the way he's going to leave, because it's probably one of the most heartbreaking moments in the entire show, honestly. He tells her straight out that, he loves her, and that, he definitely would love to stay, but he just can't. There's something there that's telling him to leave, and that it's better for them if they're apart, and maybe they'll find each other again someday, but right now they need to be apart. And not only is this Greg's exit from the show, Greg's exit temporarily, this is in fact Santino Fontana leaving the show, which I was shocked about, but it kind of makes sense. When you have such a huge actor, Broadway actor like Santino Fontana, who is in fact a Broadway actor who's constantly working, you have to expect that he's not going to be on the show forever. And apparently this was always the plan. He was always going to be on for 2 seasons. He was always going to be around since then, and Greg ends up leaving, and I was very worried. I'm not going to lie. I was very worried after Greg ended up leaving. I was surprised that he left so early, but I have to say this is probably one of the most ambitious directions the show goes, because they go in the most unexpected direction yet with this. You think that they're going to go in a direction where Rebecca's going to go after someone, but this definitely proves that the show really is not about Josh or Greg. It's more about Rebecca herself and the much more important relationships that reside along with them, which we'll get into. So I was really worried after this because, the entire show had been about Josh or Greg. Who was Rebecca going to be with? We had this whole love triangle going on. It seemed like we finally had solved it, and it seemed like the show was going to be Josh and Rebecca together. Hell, the intro of the show is Josh, Josh on a heart with Rebecca saying that she's just a girl in love. That's what I thought the season was going to be, is how naive Rebecca was and how she has all these problems, but she's masking them by being with Josh, and that's kind of her, trying to cover up what's really going on with her. But instead, the show goes into a whole new direction that I really was not expecting at all, because we see in episode 4, now that she has left Greg and Josh, she decides that, one, she's constantly having fantasies about Josh and Greg, kind of the guilt of what she's done to them, the fact that these two have both had sex with her, the fact these two have both had relationships with her, and the fact that she's done really fucked up shit to both of them. She's broken into Josh's house to get rid of a text message. She's, made Greg into an alcoholic. She's left both Josh and Greg, and she goes between two of them like it's nobody's business. And she knows it's wrong deep down, but she just isn't really willing to tell herself that. And we see in episode 4 that she decides to get a makeover to move on from the two of them, and it's ridiculous. She gets blonde hair and everything. Now, Heather gives her a full-on makeover because Heather actually lets her move into her apartment, and this is how they start a relationship, which I really like seeing Heather get more to do this season. I loved seeing Heather in the second half of the first season. I thought her and Greg worked great together. With her and Greg gone, she gets to do a lot more stuff on her own, and like I said, Vella Lovell, who plays her, is such a great actress. I think she does such a fantastic job in this role. I really do love her as this character, and it's great to see Heather have more to do because she's just a lot of fun. She's so cynical and really dry, but that's why she's just so fun to watch, and I think they did a really great job with her here. But Rebecca does decide to drop the makeover after a while when she realizes that this really isn't working for her, and that this really isn't what she wants to do, and that she needs to be her truest self, because she gets the idea from this company, I guess. I don't exactly remember what it is. It was either like a shoe company or something in the, company that she worked at. And they kind of came up with this idea of a makeover. But she really decides that she's not for her. She ditches the makeover. And she finally gets Greg out of her head. Like, Greg and her have this goodbye in her head, which is really sweet. It is the last scene that Santino Fontana has. And it's a very hard scene to watch. But it is goodbye for Greg and Rebecca now. So then we move move into complete new territory when we see at the end of this episode, she sees none other than Valencia, and Valencia's all on her own. She's now eating carbs, and Rebecca really doesn't know what's going on, and rather than investigate Valencia, Rebecca decides to do something that she's really hasn't thought of before. She decides to actually converse with Valencia, and these two start to realize that they actually have a lot in common. They've both been heartbroken by Josh, they both are kind of at a crossroads in their life, and they're both kind of crazy. Valencia is just as crazy as Rebecca, which is something I don't really think that the first season really explored. I mean, Valencia was kind of, I wouldn't say unlikable, but she was definitely more of a villain in season 1 than she is in season 2. In season 2, she becomes one of Rebecca's closest allies, and I really like this direction of her. I think it definitely is the right direction. These two, I like seeing these two bond together. It is my least favorite episode of the season, but that's only because it is one of the more transition type episodes, which this show doesn't do a ton. Almost every episode gets us somewhere, and this episode was more just an episode of her getting to know Valencia, and that was just a lot of fun to see. But at the end of the episode, they do decide to be friends, and I really did like the way that that was done here. But in order for me to talk about the next episode, we have to get into Paula's storyline, which I think is almost just as interesting as Rebecca's. Because, yes, I knew that Paula was a great character, and I always thought that, Donna, Lynne, Chamberlain did such a great job, playing this character. I really did love what she did on the show, but I will definitely say that, I do think that she was less of, really interesting, and she was more of Rebecca's sidekick last season. That's really what she was last season. That is not at all what she is this season. Like I said, this season is much more of an ensemble show, and that is especially true to Paula, who really is on her own this season, because she starts to realize that, now that she's not scheming with Rebecca, because Rebecca doesn't want her to do that anymore, because she's now kind of retired from that, and she's saying a whole song about it for all we know, she now wants to do something on her own, and she realizes what she really wanted to do was become a lawyer. It's something that she's very good at, it's something that she could do really, really well, and it's something that she's very interested in. So she starts to go on this really interesting journey of becoming a lawyer, but things kind of go sour when she tells Rebecca to give her the papers, and Rebecca does not give her the thing to hand in to become a lawyer till after the deadline. This is something that's not a huge deal till later, but you start to see the destruction of Rebecca and Paula's relationship. That's a big part of this season, is the destruction of their relationship. But Paula, when Rebecca, like I said, the reason Rebecca thinks she's pregnant is because Paula realizes that she might actually be pregnant with Scott's baby, of course, and this is something that she definitely starts to, get worried about, because she obviously does not want to be pregnant, and things are kind of rough between Paula and Scott, to say the least, because he really doesn't trust her after what she's done. There's a lot of bad blood between these two. They're trying to be stable, but it's just kind of hard to do, because she's always off doing her own thing, and she does, in fact, decide to get an abortion, but she does not tell Rebecca about it. She actually keeps this from her, and it's not because of the fact that she doesn't want to tell her. It's more because Rebecca's a lot of stress going on. She doesn't want to tell her, but also because of the fact that she really doesn't trust Rebecca right now. She starts to get closer with another coworker, Sunel, who Sunel is someone who is this theater director who actually has gone through a very significant loss. He lost his wife. She committed suicide, and this is something that really has plagued him, and just like Valencia and Rebecca, Paula and Sunel start to see how similar they really are, how much they feel like a third wheel, how much they need someone else, and these two really do start to bond, and that's something that was very interesting to see with Paul, the way that he really cares about her, and the way that he kind of is very much, what she wants from Rebecca to be. Rebecca always is very manipulative towards her, Rebecca always is very destructive, but Sunel is very supportive and always takes her side, and it's someone that, it's something different for Paula. She hasn't really had this kind of relation before, and it's something that she really is into with her and Sunel, and I really did like the direction that they took Paula and Sunel. I actually really did like the relationship. I was worried about it overall, but I thought for the most part it worked really well, and especially when we get to the 6th episode, which is nothing less, I think, than the game-changing episode of the season. I mean, if you thought that Josh and Greg no longer being in the picture of Rebecca's love life is a big deal, that is nothing compared to episode 6, because episode 6, we see Rebecca, she has Heather, she has Valencia, these three become very close friends, and Rebecca wants to find a way to keep her relationship with Paula intact. She wants to keep Paula in that friend group, but she does probably the dumbest thing she could probably do and not tell either one about any of that. She doesn't tell Paula that Heather and Valencia are coming, and she doesn't tell Heather and Valencia that Paula's coming. I don't know why she did this, but that's just what Rebecca does, and things obviously get very awkward. Paula shows up and they're there, and things are definitely, I mean, they're not terrible to say the least, but Paula had no idea that they were coming, and she really has nothing in common with either Valencia or Heather, so she feels very out of place to say the least, and she actually ends up getting stuck in the bathroom, we see, and Rebecca tries to free her from the bathroom, but the entire time it just seems like something is brewing between them. Like, there's so much bad blood and so many secrets that they're keeping from each other, and finally, Paula's phone was off, and Rebecca finally finds out what's going on, that Paula, in fact, has Sunel, and that Sunel is her friend, but also, of course, about her abortion, and this obviously very much upsets Rebecca, because Rebecca feels that she couldn't trust her enough to tell who's supposed to be her best friend that she had an abortion. But, Sunel sees Rebecca more as her daughter because she's so needy, and she's very much always, she always needs someone to give to her. And Paula and Rebecca get in this very mature conversation that I really did love overall, where Paula talks about how the relationship has always been a give-take situation. She gives and she takes, and that's how it always is. She asks Paula to give her something, and then she takes it from her, and that's really how the relationship is always going to be. But this very much upsets Rebecca. We see that Rebecca really is upset that she's made a friend Sunel and that she hasn't told Rebecca anything. But Paula brings up a good point where Rebecca hasn't really supported her. She wanted to be a lawyer. Rebecca never really did anything with it till after the deadline. So Paula's dreams are kind of not exactly crushed, but she has less of a chance of becoming a lawyer. And it's very sad to see, but it's very realistic. You can totally understand why these two aren't friends anymore. You can understand, it seems like something we've been building up to all season, and especially after all the damage that they went through last season, how together they were. It's very sad to see these two split up, but like I said, this really does show that the true relationship of the show is about Rebecca and Paula, and without them together, the show itself feels broken, but it's a good kind of broken. It's something where Rebecca gets to learn on her own. It's something where these two try to replace each other, but if there's anything that we learned in the season finale, it's that you can't, it's mid-season finale, so you can't really, replace each other, which we'll get into in the mid-season finale, but it's a very well done episode. I think episode 6 is probably the best episode we've had of this season by far. I loved everything about it. I think they just did an incredible job with it, and seeing Rebecca and Paula, walk away from each other at the end of episode 6 was very sad to see. You very much care about them, and it's definitely sad to see the direction that they're going in. So that's everything that happens with Rebecca's arc. So much of the show is centered on her that, yeah, there's a lot going on there. The only other stuff to really talk about is Josh, because Josh does have stuff going on after he and Rebecca break up, and that's something I like. I like that they keep Josh on the show, because obviously he didn't leave, Greg left, so there's no reason to not have Josh on the show, and I like that he's still there. He's just not as much a part of Rebecca's life anymore. But it is, in fact, going to, eventually get into her life, because, Rebecca is as scheming and as snobby and just as, she always needs to know what's going on with everyone as she is, and gossipy. So I do like the direction they take Josh, though, because Josh basically is working and he's trying to be alone, but we realize this season that Josh really can't be alone. He can't be alone without love. He always needs someone to, some sort of relationship, or else he's going to go crazy. There's this great song called Thought Bubbles where, he starts to think of some really positive things, but then they get really deep, and he starts thinking about his father, things like that. Is he going to be a good father? Is his mother going to die? All these crazy things, and eventually, there's this coworker, Anna, that comes into the picture, and this is someone who Josh immediately feels an attraction to, and he feels like he wants to ask her out, and these two start this relationship where he's with her, and it's really sweet overall. I like the direction that they went in with Anna and Josh, where these two really do want to be together. He starts to text her a lot, and it seems like she's going to be the new, and she's completely normal. That's what I like about Anna, is that she's a normal person. There's nothing really crazy about her. It's something different for Josh. She doesn't really have to deal with anyone that's needy like Valencia, or, controlling like Valencia, or someone who's crazy like Rebecca is. And I like that Anna isn't like that, and he obviously really does like that. That's something that he really hasn't dealt with before. But then we get to this other side of it, which is really funny. We see that Trent comes back into the picture, which, yes, Trent, of course, this is the fake boyfriend that Rebecca came up with, and he does come back into the picture because he wants to win back Rebecca, and the way he's going to do that is he tries to bond with Josh's friend group, and needless to say, it does not work out very well at all. He does not fit in there. Everyone finds him very weird, and he tries to go back to Rebecca at the end of episode 6, and they actually do end up sleeping together, but what he doesn't tell her is that he's actually a virgin, and she actually did take his virginity, which is kind of funny, but also kind of creepy, and I thought that was definitely funny, the direction that went in, but that's basically everything that happens this season. There is a brief thing with Daryl and White Josh, but there's not really a ton of development with them this season. There's definitely, I think, going to be more in the second half, but that's really it in terms of everything that happens in the season. Now we're getting into the finale, because I really do want to talk about the finale overall and where I think we're headed with that. But before we do talk about the finale, I do want to talk about a couple things, like the directing and things like that. Like I said, the tone of the season is very different than last season. I think last season was a lot more hopeful and a lot more, just a lot more fantasy-like. And this season's very realistic. Like, this season definitely tells you this is the direction that Rebecca's life is going. She can't really change it, even though she really wants to. She can't really change it, and I really did like that. That's something that definitely is done very well here. And I think definitely that was a lot more consistent. The tone of the season, the jokes are more consistent, the drama is a lot more consistent, the show's deeper. Like, it was definitely deep last season, but it's definitely deeper into all of the characters, not just Rebecca, but I think all of the characters. We get deeper into their lives, we find out more about Paula, we find out more about Valencia. Like I said, in general, this is just more of an ensemble show, and that's what you should want in season 2. You should want to add more development to your characters, because we already love these characters. Let's just make us love them more, and they did that with Paula really well, and especially Valencia. Valencia was someone I was very on and off with last season. I really started to like her in the second half of last season. Then I kind of started to find her annoying. So I like that they took her in the direction they did this season, because it just makes her overall more likable, and I definitely really did like that. Let's talk about the songs, because the songs are just as on point as they were last season. I think the musical aspect is one of the best aspects of the show, and there are a lot more characters that are singing this season. There's not just Rebecca, there's a Paula solo, there's a Josh solo, so it's not just in Rebecca's head anymore. You can see that even is starting to rub off on them, and that again is another effect of what Rebecca's done, and that's a big part of the season. Like I said, the aftermath of what Rebecca's done to everyone, how she's affected them, that is a big part of where this season is going, and that's something I really did like. I like that this season is very real. It doesn't try to hide anything, and it basically shows that Rebecca can't get away for that much longer, and I definitely really did like the way that all was executed. I thought overall that was all really well done. But now let's get into the mid-season finale, because I really do want to talk about where I think that we're going to go for the rest of the season. So the mid-season finale is, I think, as crazy as one could be, definitely, for this show. I think it shows how far Rebecca is willing to go, and I definitely think that we definitely do see that here, especially with Rebecca, Valencia, and Heather, because at this point, these three are the best of friends, and I like that Paula, coming into the relationship didn't ruin that. I was worried that she was going to throw a wrench into their relationship, but I didn't want that. I liked that these three had a bond together. I liked the way that was done, and I think that... But these three are really good friends now, and we see Rebecca, Heather, Valencia, they're just trying to find ways to chill, and through Facebook, they realize that Josh is a girlfriend. Both Rebecca and Valencia are shocked to find out that he has another girlfriend, but they're also shocked to figure out who it is, that it is in fact Anna, because she seems perfect to them, and immediately they want to find out everything about her, and we get this great song where Anna is singing about research me obsessively, where they're trying to find her name on the internet, but there are a bunch of, Anna Hicks. It just doesn't sound like, Valencia even points out, doesn't even sound like a real name, so they're destined to find out anything about her, and that's like what I really love about this episode. Like I said, we see Valencia is just as crazy as Rebecca. She's kind of doing the same things that Rebecca is, and they want to do what they can to find her. So they go track her down, even though Heather warns them that this is probably not the best idea to do. They track her down anyway, and immediately when they track her down, they see her with a white powder, and they immediately suspect that she's a drug dealer, because, why else would she have white powder? There's no other reason why she would have white powder, so they think that she has to be a drug dealer for this reason, and they go track her down, and we see immediately that they're wrong, because they think that she's a drug dealer and everything. They think that that's, that Josh can't possibly have a normal girlfriend, not someone like Anna, who's so rich. Why would she like someone like Josh? And, basically we see that she actually is, in fact, a eyebrow beautician where you put stuff on your eyebrows and makes your eyebrows grow, and this is something that they're kind of shocked to find out. They realize that they've done all this research for nothing. They realize that she's completely normal, and I like that. I like that there's nothing too crazy about Anna, that she's normal, because it's very rare that we have a normal character on the show. When, we're dealing with a show with so many fucked up characters that have all these sort of things going on with them. I mean, even Josh, we've seen that Josh can't possibly be alone. I don't know exactly what he has, but he can't be alone. He constantly is worried about things, and, Valencia even says that he gives everyone he's so giving, and he's too open of a person. He doesn't hide anything. He even talks to telemarketers, and while that stuff is funny, that those are problems that Josh does have, and I like that we definitely saw that here. But Rebecca and Valencia realize that they've done all this stuff for nothing, and they go back to Heather, who tells them that this was a bad idea in the first place, and they decide that they're going to try to move on from Josh. They don't know if it's possible, but they're going to try to move on from him, and we end this episode with Rebecca. Valencia ends up leaving her because she wants to find new love, and that was definitely kind of sad to see. While Paula, on the other hand, this episode, she's trying to mend things with Scott. Scott has this big thing for West Covina, because I guess it's like the West Covina celebration, and he's singing the song in a choir, and Paula has too much stuff going on with her being a lawyer, and in the end, we see that she ends up missing most of Scott's performance. She sees the encore only, and we see things really are not going well with Paula and Scott. By the end of this episode, it seems like it's kind of like the end between them. It looks like he's about to leave her, and again, this is kind of Paula's fault. She could have tried to fix this relationship, but she really didn't take the time and effort that she needed to try to mend this relationship. Even though, it was kind of broken already, it really was nothing she can do, and that's really how we end this. And I really do like the way the episode ends with Rebecca and Paula both singing about how much they need each other, how alone they are. We see they haven't gotten rid of their numbers, and we end this mid-season on a very sour note, but hopefully a note where maybe these two do have a chance of getting back together. We don't really know, but that is how this mid-season ends overall. Let me just get into where I think we're going to go from here, because honestly, I don't really know. So, enjoy this first half of the season. I think this was a very inventive first half for sure. They started off with this thing that Rebecca and Josh were going to get together, and then it turned out that this is actually going to be more about her and her friends, which does make more sense in retrospect. I mean, yeah, the show is called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, but the show has always been about how she's not just there for Josh, and this season, when you take Greg out of the picture and Josh is no longer in her life, now Rebecca needs to, have something to do, and I like the way she's interacting with her friends. I like the way she's trying to repair relationships, but the big question is, how long will she be able to maintain this thing with Heather and Valencia? I feel like it's only a matter of time before she ends up isolating them, because in this show, as we know, anyone that Rebecca gets close to, she freaks them out and they run away. But Valencia is just as crazy as Rebecca, we very much see. She's just as clingy when it comes to guys. She's just as involved in their lives. She's just as controlling. She's practically the same person as Rebecca, except she's not nearly as she's not nearly as damaged as Rebecca is. But she does definitely have a lot of problems going on with her, and that's something I'm definitely interested in seeing, is how long will they keep up this relationship, and will Rebecca be able to keep Valencia in her life? It's clear that she wants to replace Paula with Valencia, but that clearly is not really working out, and that's the same with Paula and Sunel. As much as Paula wants to keep Sunel in her life, it's, he has a whole life, he has kids, he has a sad life, but it's a good life, and that's something that Paula really doesn't have. She doesn't really have a good life. She has a bad relation with her son. She has a bad relation with her, husband, of course. Scott's leaving her, and I don't know, I think it's only a matter of time before these two are, in fact, back to being best friends. I think that definitely is going to happen this season. We'll have to see, but I think it's going to be very interesting. Now, Josh and Anna, I really do like this dynamic, and, Josh even tells her at the end of the episode that he's never really found anyone like her, so I do think these two are probably going to be together for a while. I like I said, that she's completely normal. I like there's really nothing weird or, eccentric about her, which is something different for the show, and I like that overall. I like that she's just a normal person, and that Josh wants to chill with her because she's cool and everything, and I like the direction that that's going, and I do like, I'm kind of happy for Josh that he actually has found someone that genuinely cares about him and is normal, it's not crazy. I like the direction that's going. You can see that Josh, he's ready for normal. He doesn't want crazy, and I like where that's going with Josh overall, so definitely really good stuff there. And then as far as Greg, the big question is Greg ever going to come back into the picture? I really don't know. I don't think he's coming back this season. I think he's probably going to come back at the end of the third, either in the middle of the third season or the end of this season. I don't think he's going to be there anytime soon. Santino Fontana has a lot of stuff going on. He's a dad. He's got that going on. He's got other shows and things like that. He's committed to Broadway, so I'm not surprised that he ended up leaving the show. But I think he did a really good job of letting the show stay interesting, even though they kept the two love interests out of it. And that's something the show did really, really well. I think really to show how great the show is when it comes to, reinventing itself and trying to keep ways to still have interesting characters, even though the two characters that are most important in the show are kind of gone. Like I said, the most important relationship really is Rebecca and Paul, and that's something we definitely do see. My only thing this season that so far Daryl has absolutely nothing to do, like he really hasn't had anything substantial of a plot. We had a brief thing with him and White Josh, but it really wasn't anything that big. Those two, are still together and everything. I did like his whole thing with Maya. I thought that was pretty funny with them making that dance in episode 6. I thought that was funny. But Daryl so far has really had nothing to do, and I do hope that he has something, in the second half. I'm sure he will. But overall, it's been a really good first half of the season. I really do love the direction that we're headed in this first half. But let me know what you guys thought of this first half of the season. Love your thoughts on it. Do you like that they've changed the show up? Do you like the show, even though Greg's in there? I know some people said they stopped watching the show. I'd say don't stop watching the show. The show I think, is as good as it was when Greg wasn't there. Yeah, I do miss Santino Fontana, but I think the show, they've done a good job of keeping the show interesting and keeping it just as fun without him there. It's one of the most fun times I have watching any show. It's also one of the most depressing shows at some points, and in general is one of the overall best shows on TV that I very much love watching, and I can't wait for a second half of the season. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next, which will be for the mid-season finale of The Walking Dead. That's sure to be crazy, and I will definitely see you guys for that. Okay, bye.